On another exciting episode of the Animation Deliberation podcast, the season is changing. It's time to prep to fly south. I forgot which direction I was supposed to go for a second. We're going south, we're bulking up, and we're going to do that with Dreamwork's newest movie, The Wild Robot. Currently in theaters, right after these ads, we have no control over.
Sing along if you know the words. 1, 2, 3, it's time for Animation Deliberation, a conversation and a celebration of our favorite action animated series. Yeah.
Yeah, welcome back to another episode of Animation Deliberation, the podcast where we take action, animation, and cartoons seriously, but not too seriously. We're your hosts. I'm Zuhair Ali.
And my name's J. Scotty St. Clair.
And DreamWorks gave us another great movie, man. This was one that when I first saw the trailer of it, it was just a teaser trailer. I knew nothing about the plot. I hadn't heard any dialogue from that teaser trailer.
Yeah.
So I went in completely blind. I was like, this looks beautiful. I need to see it in a premium format. I don't care what it's about. Like, I'm sold.
Okay.
So going into it, with it being DreamWorks, I was just like, this seems very different. The art style is different. It's very we're going straight into the nerdy stuff here. So in terms of like animation and spoiler warnings, obviously.
Yep.
It had that painterly brush look that we love about Clone Wars and Bad Batch.
Yes.
Somebody mentioned that it was very reminiscent of Arcane, which I'm still behind on, sorry.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah. I haven't heard those comparisons, but I could see it. Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of like the 3D models with like the 2D effects like drawn over it. Yeah, that's a good comparison.
Yeah, it was a very beautiful look, and that was what sold me on wanting to make sure I saw this in theaters. And it's just funny with how fascinated I was with the different look of this for a DreamWorks movie. The comedy was still very reminiscent of a DreamWorks movie.
Okay. That's funny that I've only seen it the once, but I absolutely loved it. And as I was like kind of reflecting on it, I was trying to recall some jokes, and I remember some characters that were funny, and I remember a few gags, but I didn't find this movie to be overly funny. Like, it has its moments of levity, don't get me wrong, but it was a very touching, moving, beautiful film for me. It made me cry multiple times. The most I've cried since Coco. So we'll talk about some of those specific moments later on. But I was actually really glad that you kicked off your take with discussing the trailer and the teaser trailer, because that's one thing I wanted to talk about. That was a big factor in my experience with this movie. I want to say it was around March or April of earlier this year. I saw the first teaser trailer for The Wild Robot with no context whatsoever in a theater, and I think it was a premium format. It was either Dolby or IMAX, so it really hit me. And like you said, there was no dialogue, very moody, just establishing the central theme of a robot in the wild interacting with these animals, and I was instantly hooked. I was like, "Ooh, this looks good! What a trailer! That looks badass!" And then so I guess you never saw the second trailer then?
Correct.
Okay. I unfortunately did see the second trailer, and I kind of wish I hadn't, because that dashed my hopes a little bit. That's where we got some of the voice acting, and we'll talk about the voice performances later on, because I don't think there's a bad one in the bunch. But when I saw that trailer, I was a little disheartened. I was like, ooh, this felt like it had the opportunity to be something really unique and beautiful and really moody. And I am reminded last year, we didn't talk about it on the show, but in terms of the Oscars, as far as animated features go, one movie that was really discussed was Robot Dreams. And I saw that after the fact when it was released at my local AMC. And that was one of those movies. It's like an hour, 45 minutes, not a single word of dialogue. And that's all I'll say about it. It's like a very beautiful and moving experience, though. So if you like The Wild Robot, I would kind of recommend that as a companion piece. But after seeing that second trailer, like I said, my hopes were dashed a little bit. I was a little disheartened, but then I started hearing the word of mouth, starting with like critics. Sorry, I got a siren in the background. I started hearing the critical reviews coming out of film festivals and whatnot, and the word of mouth was really, really strong. It had a lot of buzz, and that kind of renewed my hopes, but I was still a little skeptical. And sure enough, the movie absolutely won me over.
Nice.
Beautiful, beautiful film through and through.
Yeah, I remember the teaser trailer, like, showing the voice talent at the end, like where the names just kind of pop up, and I was like, oh, I know some of those names, but I totally like forgot about those names by the time I got in there. So I think Pedro Pascal was the only one that I like clearly recognized, and everything
Really?
else, like once I read the credits, I was like, oh, okay. But also, like, like I don't pay attention to stuff like that. It's
That's
just like I'm watching and watching. And it's just like, oh yeah, like I get who that is, but I don't like get fixated on things like that. But I think the biggest comp that I had, because I only saw the teaser trailer, was how does this compare to Wally? Because
okay.
Wally also, the dialogue is very minimal until we get to the people, but it is very explorative, right? Like it's the
Sure.
perspective from this robot going through, exploring new things, adapting to it, reacting to it. So I was wondering, it's like, okay, from the teaser trailer, I was like, okay, why is this robot here? It seems accidental. It doesn't seem very intentional, like how Wally was.
Sure.
But like, why does it need to learn? Is it dystopian? Is it just trying to adapt? Like, there was a lot of curiosity, and it made me feel like it was a nature film, which we
Yeah.
did get a little bit of that, just on a much smaller scale than what I was anticipating.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the Wall-E comparisons are appropriate, but that's another one I hadn't really considered. I think I was, in terms of Pixar films, I was kind of comparing this one in my head to Finding Nemo, because I think the themes
Mm.
of like parenting really resonated with me. But the fact that you recognize Pedro Pascal, that I find that really funny and peculiar, because like you said, you don't really pay attention to that kind of thing. I was racking my brain the entire time I was watching the movie. I was like, who is voicing this fox? I had no idea. I
I
suspect.
will say, I think it took me about halfway through the movie before I was like, that's who it is.
Okay, okay. Yeah, the only voice I recognized besides Lupita Nyong'o, and the only reason I recognized her is because I just knew, with the marketing and kind of knowing what I knew about the movie, I knew she was going to be the lead. She was going to be Roz. The only other voice I recognized was Matt Berry as the. I thought he was supposed to be a beaver, but I think one of the first full body shots we got for him, it looked like he had like a rat tail. So I guess he was supposed to be a muskrat. I don't know the character's name
I mean,
or
I'm
anything
looking
like
at the
that.
voice cast, and it says Matt Perry as Paddler, a beaver.
Oh, he is a beaver. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
I thought it
Maybe
was
it
a
was
beaver
just.
too.
I thought he was a beaver. I guess maybe there was just one weird shot of the tail that made me
Yeah.
think it was more rat-like or whatever. But another instance where I was absolutely like racking my brain, I was like, I recognize this voice, but I can't place it. Was Ving Rhames as like the hawk that taught Bright Bill how to like fly more aggressively.
Is that because that name did sound familiar? And
Ving
okay.
Rhames. He was in like Pulp Fiction is probably one of his big things,
Yeah,
and he's in like all of the Mission Impossible movies as well.
yeah. I got
Yeah,
the picture up.
yeah,
Yeah, that one was like, I kind of recognized it, but because his appearance was so quick and to the point, like I just kind of went back to focusing on the movie.
sure.
The biggest surprise when I saw it afterwards was Catherine O'Hara, because I'm just so used to her from Schitt's Creek,
Oh,
and she
right. Yeah.
basically took that same persona into Beetlejuice recently.
Yes, for
So it was
sure.
almost like she kind of does the same thing and has the same vibe. So the fact that like I've seen her Schitt's Creek motherly, to see her actually be motherly was like, oh, I didn't even catch on to
Uh,
that.
One of her original motherly roles was as the mom in Home Alone. That's where I'll always recognize her from,
Oh,
first and foremost. Yeah.
that's one that I like just haven't seen as a kid and haven't like revisited in any way. That, yeah,
Okay.
had I like randomly decided to watch that, would have been like, oh my god, it's her.
Yeah. Well, speaking of voice performances and voice actors and whatnot, I'm kind of surprised the director Chris Sanders didn't give himself a voice cameo, because when I did a little bit of research, I recognized he not only is he the director of Lilo and Stitch, but he is the voice of Stitch. He has voiced Stitch in pretty much
Oh,
everything, and
interesting.
he's going to voice Stitch in the live action
That's
adaptation
so
that's
cool.
coming out. Yeah, yeah. So not only did he direct Lilo and Stitch, but he also did How to Train Your Dragon. So right there shows his pedigree. That's some of those, one of Disney's best and one of DreamWorks' best for sure.
One of animation's best.
There we go. Yeah, yeah. But
Voice
I
acting
do want to
credit.
say
Okay, so
this.
he was in Mulan, Tarzan, Lilo and Stitch,
Uh,
all the Stitches,
yeah.
the Croods, Penguins of Madagascar,
Okay.
Once Upon a Studio. That's cool.
Yeah.
Sorry, what did I cut you off on?
I honestly don't remember, but that's okay.
Sorry.
No worries. I did want to check in with you. I think I know the answer here based on what you said when you saw the trailer, but and I think we're on the same page here. But as far as the familiarity with the source material, excuse me, were you aware that this was based on a children's book?
No,
Okay.
not at all.
Yeah. Yeah. It's based on a 2016 book by Peter Brown, and I think he did that with a follow up in 2017 called The Wild Robot Escapes. But
Hmm.
yeah, it's funny as we were talking about this show or movie rather on Multiverse News. I was kind of saying, oh, it's so nice to get something fresh that doesn't rely on existing IP. And someone in the chat corrected me that actually this is based on source material. But the nice thing
That
about that
bad.
is this thing debuted to $35 million at the end of September, but it was enough to make it the third highest grossing animated film in September ever. And also on Multiverse News, sorry to plug that show so much, but we had a listener write in and we were kind of talking about how Transformers 1, which is a movie we didn't really talk about on this show, but just a quick review for that one. It was actually kind of similar to my experience with this one. I did not like the trailers, but then when the word of mouth was so strong, I saw it kind of begrudgingly so. And it does have issues. I think there are some issues with it, but it was a solid movie through and through. But anyway, this listener wrote in and said that they were not going to see Transformers 1 with their kid based on the trailer, but they were going to see The Wild Robot, and they weren't just going to see it with them and their kids. They had like a whole gang of families that were going to go see it. So I think this one has the potential to go the distance. I don't think it's going to have the same box office haul as Inside Out 2, but
Mhm.
come award season, I think this is going to be a real contender.
Yeah. Yeah, and it has every right to. I'm glad you said what you said about Transformers because that was one where like I was underwhelmed when I saw the trailer as well. So I was like,
Yeah,
if one of my two cohorts say that they want to talk about it, I'll go see it. But
yeah,
I'm not going to bring up the conversation and see if I can avoid the theater trip on that one.
yeah. If it hits streaming, we can maybe talk about it. I mean,
Sure.
I say
Yeah, I'll do it then.
if it hits streaming, it will hit streaming. And like
Yeah.
I said, it's a solid movie, but there are some issues with it. But anyway,
Yeah. Because my Transformers range is already so limited as it is between the live action films, and then the only series I really got into was Transformers Armada, the one
okay,
with the minicons.
uh
Because
huh,
obviously Cartoon Network and Warner Brothers and Toonami was, I can't remember which one it was on. It was just supreme. So how could you not get into it? Like I still have my
sure,
figures that you can transform and stuff. So
nice,
because everything was already so small, and I knew that just when it came out, like the original like 80s fans and everything were just so disappointed in it, like
hmm
there was just too much negativity, and then I didn't have a good perception looking at it just seemed too kiddie, I guess, which for me to say that for an animated thing is a
yeah.
big deal. I don't know, there was just the perception of it coming out just didn't strike me as something I wanted to jump to see unless somebody else mentioned it.
Yeah, I mean, this is the first time I'm talking about it, so that kind of goes to show. Like, I came away from it not like disappointed that I saw, but it was like, yeah, it
Yeah.
was solid. That's the best
All
I can
right.
say about it.
Good one-time watch type of thing. I think it was fine.
Yeah, I might revisit it when it hits streaming. Like I said, if we
Yeah.
want to
I'll
talk
watch
about
it
it,
then.
yeah, yeah,
So I guess we can get into plot a little bit.
sure,
And I want to get the one thing I did not like about this movie out of the way.
okay,
And it's the fact that they made me care about geese.
okay.
Because I hate geese. They are
No,
the
that's
devil's
right.
bird. They are a menace to society. I cannot stand them. They are so freaking irritating. And the fact that you gave me a plot and made me care about them and made me feel emotional about them, I do not appreciate. Well done on making me do so, but
Yeah,
damn you for making me care about geese.
that's so funny you bring that up because I'm reminded. I think geese are a little bit more of an issue on in your neck of the woods on that side of the
Yes.
country because I remember when I was stationed in that area, Norfolk, and even a little bit more north in Maryland, Fort Meade, when I was in A school for the Navy, and I was there. Not it wasn't just the Navy. There was the Army there. There was every branch was there. But I remember the Air Force students that were there that were training. They had to have specialized, like they had pamphlets that had like safety procedures when encountering like geese on like walkways and stuff like that. I thought it was hilarious. But yeah,
Dude, they're
geese can be pretty territorial.
yeah, they're such a nightmare. They block traffic so badly. They are wildly aggressive. I know I have a lot of Canadian family, and I know some of them are listening to this. I do not care about how you feel about my goose remarks. I cannot stand them here. So very like all the applause to the director here for making me care about geese.
For
And
sure.
the fact
For sure.
that Longneck actually addressed it too. It's like,
Mm.
yeah, we're a pain and we gossip and we're irritating. We're no fun to be around, blah, blah, blah. I'm just like, thank you for being self aware. Thank you for addressing this. Like, don't come off as saints right now. Like, and then when we had the scene of them like bullying Bright Bill and stuff like that, I'm just like, yeah, because geeses are pieces of shit.
Hmm. 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 Yeah, you talk about getting them to endear you to a goose character, which is impressive. I was, but I think what I come away from this with, so being so impressed with, is the fact that it actually endeared me to all the characters in such a short amount of time. Like, it's just
Mhm.
such a great economy of like screen time and effectiveness with these character moments. And like, to your point, the first like 10-15 minutes are largely without dialogue. Like, the character Roz doesn't even know how to communicate with these animals yet.
Yeah.
uh, but I really found myself really resonating with Roz. Like, I think you can take this movie in like one of two ways, and maybe more than that. But I want to go back to what I kind of brought up about like the themes of like parenting. And I think what really hit me so hard about this movie, like I think about the last few movies to hit me really hard, starting with Coco, and then thinking about Godzilla minus one, I'll even throw in there. And then this film, like they all involve this motif of a parent that steps up to the plate and makes like a sacrifice that the child is just not at an ability, like in a maturity level, to appreciate at that point. And
Mhm.
for whatever reason, those stories, just like that act of like unconditional love and sacrifice that a parent can have, like even right now, it's welling up into me and like getting me emotional just thinking about that. And that this movie just like makes that relationship between Roz and Bright Bill, and even throw Fink into the mix there. That little like found family surrogate familial unit is just, I care about them so much in just such a short amount of time. It's incredible filmmaking.
The I love what you said in regards to parenthood, and I love the Godzilla comparison because the part that hit me, yes, like I'm a mama's boy, so I even like text my mom right after the movie ended. I was just like, "Hi, I just saw Wild Robot. I miss you more. I love you. I hope you have a good weekend."
I love that.
I literally like text her right away. I was just like, "Man, I really miss my mom right now."
Hmm. Hmm.
But another thing, especially with Roz, and the main character of Godzilla really pertains to this as well. It's a sense of purpose. For this regard, she's designed to do one thing, and that's to serve, right?
Right.
So when she gets put into a circumstance of like, how do I do this? Like, it's not, oh, I need to take care of this child because it needs to be taken care of. It's because someone talked me into setting an objective for myself. Like, I'm finding a loophole to do what I'm actually supposed to do. Not, it's not for the sake of caring for this child, right? So the
Right.
same thing in Godzilla minus one, where it's like the guy can't be an asshole and just leave this baby and woman on the side, but like he's a soldier, right? And
Hmm.
they develop these reputations. So he's the reputation of, being a pilot. This person has a reputation of being a robot that's supposed to serve. Fink has a reputation of messing things up. Bright Bill has the
Hmm.
reputation of not fitting into everybody. So to have this purpose, to find something that defines them for something that lets them be their best self, to fulfill their full potential and whatnot. I really like that that was just a common thing that was going through, especially when she had to like bring everybody together. It
Yeah.
reminded me of the opening of the live action Disney Jungle Book, where it's just like, yo,
Oh,
we're
okay.
all at the river. Let's just call a truce. Let's take it
Right.
easy. Let's be
Yeah,
friends for a little
absolutely.
bit. Do whatever you want outside of that.
Yeah.
But yo, let's dial it back over here. So just those recurring stories of people overcoming what is expected of them and
Yeah.
becoming their best selves. This stuff was kind of what hit me most.
Yeah. I think that's a great point. And like, in terms of overcoming that expectation that exists and really rewriting the narrative, like I think you hit on something great there that I picked up on. I think more so with Roz, but I think you make great points about like Fink as well, and Bright Bill being the runt, but particularly with Roz, the fact that like she rewrote her programming initially to like you said, find loopholes to accomplish this task, this purpose. But then that
Mhm.
effectively like made her who she was. That's what made her so valuable. It's the fact that I can't remember the name of the, was it Rosam? I think it was Rosam because she went by
Rosum
Roz.
Unit 7134.
Right. All right. So I think it was the Rosam Corporation that like eventually you have the collector robot that wants to like dissect her and learn about her, voiced wonderfully by Stephanie Shu. She's one of my favorite performers that's like rising up right now. Small role, but absolutely venomous in that
Gave
portrayal
me the
there.
heebie-jeebies all around.
Yeah, yeah. And while we're on the subject of voice performances, not to veer too much here, but I did want to shout out Mark Hamill as the bear.
Yeah.
I had no idea he's so great. He's just got such a range with that voice of his.
Yeah. It wasn't until it popped up that I was like, "Oh, that's
Yeah.
awesome."
Yeah. Same here.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting as much action as there was towards the end of that, 'cause it was like, how do animals fight robots? But it was really just really well done. Like, I don't it's one of those things, like, how much can you really describe that much of an action scene?
Yeah.
I was fascinated with the approach and how they went about it, especially because it was so unexpected. Like, this was a
Yeah.
very dialogue heavy movie.
Yeah. And I think that is a fair thing to bring up. I don't think this film is like overly violent in its depictions of the action that happens, but I will say like I think the themes and some of the things that happen in this movie, particularly like now that we are, talking about the plot, Roz becoming the surrogate mother to Bright Bill is because she unfortunately took out his entire family when she crashed
Mhm.
into their net their nest. So there are some heavy themes at play here, and also just the fact that like nature exists the way it does, like they kind of address that head on, like, hey, like we eat each other and like that's what we
Yeah.
do to survive here. So some younger kids it may be a little too intense for them, but I will
Especially with
say
how
like
bad Fink wanted to eat the egg.
yeah, that's fair.
And it's stuff like that that makes it DreamWorks, right? Like,
True that.
for
Yeah.
us, it's funny, but it's like you think about how dark that actually is for like the designated audience. Like, Pixar and Disney do a pretty good job of having like subtle hints, but stuff like that, like him salivating over wanting to eat a child, is like, oh,
Yeah. Well, there is the death of was it Longneck? Is that what you said?
yeah,
Yeah, voiced by Bill Nye. It's not gratuitous. You don't really actually see anything happen on screen, but the revelation of that might, not sit well with some younger viewers. But
yeah.
I think that's what makes this film so great. Is it has stakes. What got you? What's so funny?
My favorite line of the movie was when Pinktail was giving advice and stuff for the first time, and she
Okay.
was like, "I have 7 children." I have 6 children. I'm like, whoa! You're just gonna casually
Yeah.
let your kid get eaten? And then my buddy was like, "Which one do you think it was?" It was like, it was obviously the one that was like doing the slow death, like, fake your death. What are you doing? I have meningitis. It dies slower. Just like, oh yeah, that's definitely the one that. I'm okay, mom. And it's like, oh my god, like, yes, that was the part that made me go, yes, this is a DreamWorks movie. I'm totally
Yeah.
bought into that now.
Yeah. That's a great call out. It was like surprisingly like callous her delivery there. But I guess to drive it home here, we'll keep it kind of tight here, but do definitely recommend you go check out the movie. I guess in terms of the character arc that we get for Roz and the sacrifice that I'm talking about and how it really built, and I think about the moments that really tugged at my heartstrings and how I got to that point at the end where I was like borderline, ugly crying. It was just like the how Roz's sacrifices just continued to ramp up. Like first we see her like falling apart, so she replaces part of her leg with like a tree stump that we see just like slowly decaying and growing more moss and whatnot. She's
Mhm.
leaking fluid constantly, like to the point that like Fink's like, don't you need that? But then ultimately, even after this big epic third act action sequence that we're talking about, the forest is saved, the animals are saved, everyone can stay. She knows that they're going to keep coming back for her. So she makes the ultimate sacrifice and says, hey, I'm just going to go with them to protect you. And thankfully, we do get a happy ending. Bright Bill is able to reunite with her at the end there, and she recognizes him. But up until that point, it was just like full on waterworks. Like,
Yeah.
what more can this robot give? She's given everything.
Yeah, especially when she's like completely out of energy because she like called everyone in and found everyone and rebuilt the house and accommodated, and she's like leaning just like, Fink, you need to take over. I
Mm-hmm.
can't do this. And just like, oh my god, you poor thing. Yes, you've worked so hard.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Good robot. All right,
Yeah,
I
I
think
don't know if
I've
I have too
gushed.
much else.
Yeah,
Great movie, man. I'm
absolutely.
genuinely looking forward to seeing it again. And
Yeah.
it was worth the. You got to go watch this in premium format
Oh yeah.
if you're able to, Dolby or IMAX.
Absolutely.
Just
And
really
even if
really
you
well done.
can't, like, I understand, like, parents with kids and stuff like that. Even if you go to a regular showing, I would just say, give movies like this support
Oh
because
yeah.
I'm not a parent, but I would just have to imagine like a beautiful film that tackles things that, can stir up family conversations and really get, the emotions going. I, not to throw too much shade, but I would take this over like Illumination films all day, every day.
You're not a fan of Minions?
Not the Minions. No, no, sir. Super Mario Brothers
Oh,
is pretty good, but
speaking of, this was my first time seeing the trailer for Lego Pharrell.
oh, that's right. Piece by Piece, his biopic. Yep.
Yeah, and he's from Virginia Beach. So when
Is
they
he? Oh,
had
okay.
the beginning of the thing where it was like, yeah, this is where I grew up, I was like, oh my god, it's Lego Virginia Beach. My
That's great.
city's all Lego fine on the big screen right now.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's. I'm really curious about that one. I'm interested to see how it's going to do.
I'm intrigued.
Yeah.
Now it's like support the hometown guy
Oh,
for
sure,
me.
sure, sure.
I don't know if he can see like demographics like how we do for the podcast, where it's like, oh hey, Virginia, like a lot of people saw this movie. It's like I want to contribute to that.
I'm sure they have a way of making him aware.
Sure.
But anyway, anything you want to let the people be aware of before we hit the road?
Let's see. What have I been getting into? The usual 323 with Reed Murphy, REID. It is football season, and Commanders are actually on a winning streak right now. So I've been on the show a lot happier than I have been in past years.
Nice.
You can catch them on YouTube or anywhere you find your podcast. I just made my first Twitch account. It's Zoo Plays Games. That's ZU.
Oh, cool.
Maybe if we're up to it, we could throw the podcast on there and just have some live shows for people to chat with us if they want. But
Yeah, I don't
yeah,
see
I'm
why
mostly
not.
going to be streaming Helldivers, but I'm hoping to have everything up by next week because Dragon Ball Sparking Zero comes out, which is
That's
like the new
right.
Tenkaichi game. So obviously, if I'm an anime guy, like that'd be a cool way to um kind of talk about something in that regard. And it's just means for any of our listeners to talk to me directly if they want to. So if you guys are on Twitch and wouldn't mind giving me a follow over there, I might be starting an Instagram too. That's just kind of like all my hobby stuff. So I will keep you all posted once I decide the name because that's the only thing slowing me down right now.
Alrighty. Sounds good.
What about you? I know you're all over the place.
Yeah, I'm doing a lot of podcasting these days. On the DC side of things, Ashley and I on Bingers Assemble, we did the 2019 Joker in preparation for Joker Folie à Deux, which will be coming out soon.
When are
And
you going?
then, what's that?
When are you going
I
to
have
watch that?
tickets for Saturday morning currently.
Cool. I'm going Sunday night.
Nice. And then beyond that, still on the DC side of things, particularly DC stuff without Batman, DC villains without Batman, we are talking about the Penguin on Always Watching. It sounds like Zuhair, when available, will be joining us. Yeah. So other than that, multiverse news every week. So that'll do it for this one. Appreciate you tuning in. That's TOONIN.
And as always, stay whelmed.